So let's talk about PropTech landscape. So you are quite active in this particular field from starting from My Capital, and you would have noticed how the PropTech landscape is, evolving in India also. So what's your take when it comes to the PropTech ecosystem? Are we maturing? Are we getting the right technologies, or is there still a need gap that can be, taken care by the PropTech companies in India?
Sure. So I think extending this from PropTech to general startups, I think India is running on a 5-year delay to the US. So companies that are IPOing today in the US, or startups that are IPOing today in the US, are sort of getting Series A funded in India, right? So you have a fractional ownership platform that's IPOing in the US. Fractional ownership is at a Series A level in India. You have a Open Door, which is a instant purchase platform in the US, which is IPO'd. In India, you are seeing platforms hit Series A now. So I think that there's a 5-year time lag in most. Zomato is another example. In the US, there's a listed one. So there is a time lag. So I think that there are footsteps that we can follow. There's inspiration that we can take, which makes our lives as a founder a little bit easier. But like I said earlier, I think the next 10 years are India's 10 years. This is really going to be the growth story, not only in India, but India positioning itself globally. So similarly, PropTech is at an upswing. I mean, we are seeing unprecedented adoption of technology. Pandemic accelerated it. AI has further accelerated it. You're seeing solutions with developers adopting, and developers usually are a little bit more resistant than other industries at adopting such technologies. But Apna Complex is an example. You have HouseMonk, which is sort of giving SaaS solutions to residential buildings as well as offices. Nestaway, I think that's a name which everybody knows today. They've really changed the way. I mean, in Bangalore, I don't know very many people who would have come from outside who haven't used Nestaway, right? So we're seeing a really big transition towards these kinds of solutions. So I do think that in the next 5 years, PropTech is really going to be at its peak. And just to give context, when we started 3 years ago, I mean, I didn't even know a lot of these businesses, right? A lot of us are still building, like fractional ownership didn't exist. Co-working, managed leasing, all of these things are very, very nascent. And look at where we've already reached. You have No Broker, which has hit Unicorn Plus status. You have Nestaway, which is a whole different league. Housing.com. A lot of these platforms are making a name for themselves now.
True. So it's a good transition which we are seeing in PropTech landscape. I agree with that. But when it comes to investors, what is your take when it is investors who are investing in PropTech? Are we seeing that openness? Are we seeing more maturity in that front when it comes to investing in PropTech companies in India?
So I truly believe that investing, it goes through cycles. Right now we are in a cycle where people are being realistic, where they're looking at financials, they're looking at EBITDA, profitability, with revenues. They're not ignoring revenue, but they're also looking at these other metrics. Rewind 1.5 years. Conversations about profit were not happening. Conversations about EBITDA were not happening. It was all about, okay, if you've achieved X growth, I'll give you an X multiple. And that's a very dangerous ecosystem, right? Because time and again, we've seen this, that when you raise money at an unprecedented valuation and you can't support it, it leads to only one out of two things. Either the company faces a downfall or the VC faces a downfall. Only two things happen. So I really think that pricing of startups has to be aligned for a longer term. It will not only give investors a better return, but it'll give startup stability. Sometimes a good idea is taken, too much money is pumped into it, and it bursts sooner than you can actually, it can even evolve. So overall, I think investors are getting a sense of that, especially in the last couple of, you saw the InfoEdge write-off of Broker Network, correct? So these are the ones which are taken at really aggressive valuations. So I think it goes hand in hand. Investors giving realistic valuations, realistic pricing, and then startups living up to it. So I think both these aspects will help the industry mature a little bit more.
So you yourself an active angel investor, right? So when it comes to investment, as we are discussing, what is your particular criteria or checklist to invest in certain companies?
Sure. So I wouldn't say I'm active. I do it one-off, but my idea usually isn't. I like only betting on founders. I think that a lot of the business is dependent on the conviction of the founding team and the founder. And I usually like to give that check before the website is also built, so really, really early stage, so that I can act as a mentor. I've seen what the last 3 years are like, and I appreciate the value a mentor could add, and I have added to my journey. So and continue to add. I mean, a lot of the more experienced founders, I constantly run ideas through. I use them as a bouncing board. So just passing on the same, doing my bit. So that's really the perspective. So I'm very sector agnostic. I'm idea agnostic. As long as the initial team has a lot of conviction, then I sort of give them a minor investment and act as a sounding board for them.
But betting in founder, don't you think is a risky situation? Because as you quoted about InfoEdge, they bet on the founder, right? Because the founder was known for the former housing founder, and then because based on that particular knowledge or based on the particular experience, they bet on the founder. Don't you feel that's a risky proposition?
So see, I'll tell you, companies come in two stages. One is when it's become a business, and the first is when it's an idea.
Yeah.
So when you're when you're investing into an idea, in my head, I write it off. Right? It could go either way. You can't. This is not a financial investment. This is more of paying it back. People helped me when I started. This is helping others when they are starting. It's more of that kind of situation. When coming to businesses that people are taking heavy stakes in, like broker network, I think corporate governance is not given enough importance. Today you're hearing a lot more corporate governance. I mean, one third party giving credit to Aurum Proptech that corporate governance is on point, best practices in place. And I think these kinds of things really help keep everybody in check. The founder, the team, the investor. There's a certain framework in which you're operating. So I think these things are really important for the long-term survival of startups and investors.
True. And you yourself quoted you're quite tech heavy, right? You get involved in technology and everything. Is there any specific tech that you're looking into invest in so that our aspiring entrepreneurs who are watching could know about it?
So more than tech, I invest in one simple philosophy. Ideas are cheap, but execution matters.
True.
So I believe any idea can be a fantastic idea if the founder and founding team have enough conviction, right? You've seen small ideas. I mean, Milkman, they deliver milk to people.
Yeah.
Look at where they are today. They've just been acquired by Reliance. So ideas come in many shapes and forms. So I wouldn't say that I'm, looking actively at a certain tech. But that being said, I'm very interested in tech. So I constantly look at ways of integrating it. Like AI also, I myself have actively been playing around with the APIs. This is what I do on Sundays. So this is one of my hobbies. I play around with new tech. I integrate it here. I try to see what more can be done with it. But yeah, that's fundamentally the approach.
So in the dynamic PropTech landscape, we are noticing AcquiHiring is being quite prominent. Few companies are going in that model. So from your vantage point, how do you feel about this particular AcquiHiring for the overall individual or the team that is being hired in that process?
Sure. So I think that for AcquiHire to work out, there's one fundamental principle that the people being AcquiHired have to have skin in the game.
Yeah.
So why does the AcquiHire happen? It happens because the team is good, but they're not being able to scale for whatever reason that might be applicable to them. Now the company that is AcquiHiring, they usually have a certain level of scale. So embedding this solution, they can sort of fast track the growth of that idea. So, this is the basic idea behind AcquiHire. So I think it's a good way for a company to sort of let their solution scale up via the help of another platform. But usually if there's not enough skin in the game or enough participation and upside of the individuals being AcquiHired, then that's where things fall apart. Because, one set of people are coming from a mentality of owning equity, of being in the startup space, the founder mentality, ownership. Now, when you take all of that and remove it, then, and you give them a little bit of money that may seem to the people being AcquiHired today that it's a good idea, but in the longer term, it's not a good idea because, they're built in a certain way, which is why they took that path in life, right? So that's the fundamental aspect. And I think some companies are doing it well, where they're AcquiHiring, they're giving skin in the game, they're giving participation of ESOP to the larger pool. So that's an interesting proposition. But then there are others who are more traditional companies who are saying, we have no concept of ESOP, you just take X amount of money and come. Those are the ones which are going to face, in my opinion, challenges.
So, do you feel the bigger companies who are hiring, doing this acqui hiring, where they are not giving the money, but of course, getting their particular team or the tech intact, and in return, they are providing them the stakes in their bigger companies? Is it a good move?
So, it depends again on a case by case basis. Now, for a founder, these decisions are quite difficult.
Yeah.
Let's assume that the business is not working, right? So, he has 2 or 3 different moves he can make. He can either shut down the business and restart as something else. He can either continue and reduce his team, fire 50%, which you're seeing nowadays quite often, some founders making that decision.
Yeah.
And the third, obviously, is to let the company or the idea survive, of course, in a different avatar as part of another company. So all three, there's no right or wrong answer, but I think it's a very difficult decision for any founder to make. And the result also depends heavily on his adaptability, on the acquiring company or the person who's doing the acqui-hire, his acceptance. So, there's a lot of variables.
True. So lastly, I want to know from you, because you've been quite active in this and you had started your entrepreneurial journey with My Capital. For the aspiring entrepreneurs who are getting involved now in the real estate market, especially in India, what advice would you tell them?
So initially things don't seem like they're going to work, but go in every day. If you have enough conviction in your idea, someday it's going to start working. And just to draw a parallel, when we launched our platform, for the first 7 months, we couldn't raise a single rupee. And in the next 3 months, we raised our first 80 crores. So, things start to work out, but the main point is you have to go in every day, be positive, work towards an idea, adapt, change, learn. And I think that's really the biggest skill set. Usually people get disheartened. They feel like this won't work, that won't work. And there's enough negativity which happens in a founder's life.
Yeah.
So, supplementing that with your own is not ideal. So, you have to be quite optimistic for things to work out. And like I said earlier, execution matters. Nothing beats execution. You can have all the VC money in the world. You can have as many people as you want. But if you're not going to execute, none of that will do you any good.
True.
So execution, time and again, trumps any other aspect, being in the startup space.
And what advice would you give to those entrepreneurs who are contemplating, do they raise during the idea level, or do they just bootstrap and start for a year, 2 years to see how the profit is going and then go for the funding? Because there have been a lot of, questions like this come in when people read, okay, certain company has raised just on idea level such huge amount, and then people think, okay, should I just focus? Because focusing on raising money takes a huge, I'm sure you also know, huge chunk of time from the founder.
Yep.
So what should a person do entrepreneur level when they are starting their journey in this Proptech?
Sure. So I think, before deciding if to raise money or not, a lot of founders, at least the ones who are starting, need to understand that raising money is actually like an agreement with someone. You're telling that person, hey, give me this much money today. I will grow this idea and this is what you'll probably get back tomorrow. Now, a lot of times founders don't understand this well enough, as simple as it is. They feel like, hey, I'm getting X amount of money at this value, but they're not looking at the flip side that I have to give this back at some point.
Yeah.
So what happens is that founders raise money at a ridiculous valuation. That valuation doesn't hold. Now, tomorrow, if the valuation drops, the only one losing out is eventually the founder, right? He can't, and none of this money goes to the founder to begin with anyway. This all goes into a company. So I always say raise as much as you need. Raise for the next 12 months. Don't try to raise for 10 years. If you think you need 10 crores for a year, there's no point raising 100 crores.
True.
Right? Having 90 crores in your balance sheet, if you're not using it, but you have to give a return on it, it's a very bad financial decision. So, only take as much as you need so that you can give a return on that which is commensurate. So I think, founders also have to sort of align themselves to understand what is the capital requirement of their business. And accordingly raise capital. So I wouldn't say that, raise capital or not raise capital. Run as far as you can without the external investor. Equity is very precious. When you need money, don't shy away from diluting, but then dilute for a purpose. Dilute so that you can go from X to 5X and have that path charted out.